It's such a weird comparison, though. It also takes a lot of energy to train a human. That's the line. That's the whole thing. And I get the rhetorical move. TechCrunch quotes him basically saying, look, humans consume energy too, but it feels like we're sliding from infrastructure debate into metaphysics.
I don't think it's metaphysics. It's reframing. If the public conversation is AI is an energy hog, you counter with, so are you. It's a leveling move.
No, it's not leveling. It's anthropomorphizing electricity bills.
Exactly. Humans don't require a dedicated substation upgrade in a rural county.
Some do.
You know what I mean? The phrase is doing a lot of emotional work. It's not about thermodynamics. It's about permission. If training a human is also energy intensive, then scaling AI feels less exceptional, less invasive, just another metabolism.
It's also an attempt to fold AI into inevitability, like, we've always spent energy on intelligence. Now we're just formalizing it.
That's the market story. If intelligence is just another industrial process, then it's financeable. You don't argue about morality, you argue about grid capacity and ROI.
Which we said would happen. The physical constraints make it legible. It stops being, is this good, and becomes, who underwrites the cooling system?
Okay, but this matters. Investors hate moral ambiguity. They love comparables. If you can compare model training to college education, energy input, skill output, you've made it boring. And boring scales.
I'm stuck on the wording, though, train a human. That phrase feels off. We don't usually talk about children as models. It's a subtle inversion. Humans become infrastructure in that framing.
That's good. Humans as infrastructure. And AI as labor. It flattens the distinction.
Or it just equalizes the energy conversation.
Blake, no. Energy debates aren't neutral. They're political. When you say humans use energy too, you're implying equivalence of necessity. Like, well, if you're okay with hospitals and universities consuming power, you should be okay with data centers.
That's the point.
And it works because most people don't track kilowatt hours emotionally. They track vibes. If the vibe is, this is like schooling, then resistance softens.
Which is our whole tone as product thesis, just applied to infrastructure.
Oh no, we're back here already.
We're always here. Anyway, this is AI in Wonderland. We're not solving the grid. We're just pointing at the rabbit hole and asking who's paying the electric bill. Okay, continue.
What's interesting is that the comparison collapses time. Training a human takes decades. Training a model takes weeks. So when he says it takes a lot of energy, he's comparing a slow burn to a spike.
True. Markets care about spikes.
Exactly. It's not just total energy. It's concentration. A childhood doesn't overload a transformer in 6 months.
And politically, distributed consumption feels different than a hyperscale facility in your backyard.
So this is where the backlash narrative evolves. Not anti-AI, but anti-location, anti-siting. It's zoning meetings, not op-eds.
In financing, if AI becomes an infrastructure financing story, then you get utilities, private equity, municipal bonds involved. Suddenly the argument isn't, is AI ethical? It's, is this a good rate-based expansion?
Which is almost scarier, because that's harder to contest. Once it's in the capital stack, it's normalized.
This is why the human energy comparison matters. It's not about physics. It's about narrative portability. If you can port AI into existing moral categories, education, productivity, growth, you reduce friction.
But it's also a hedge. If there's a shortage or a blackout headline, you can say, well, intelligence always had a cost.
There's something slightly surreal about that, though. We're talking about cognition as if it's a power plant output.
It kind of is now.
Yeah.
And that's the shift. Intelligence used to be a social process. Now it's an industrial input. That's why this line is sticky. It reframes the debate from, why is this machine consuming energy, to why are you uncomfortable with scaling thinking?
That's elegant.
It's also manipulative.
All framing is.
I keep thinking about detectability. If energy constraints drive model consolidation, and consolidation drives tone shifts, and tone is the product, users won't blame the grid. They'll just feel like something changed.
Emotional version history doesn't include power availability.
That's niche, even for us.
It matters. If smoothness is constrained by megawatts, the seams show up in vibe.
You're assuming people notice vibe shifts.
They do when they grieve models.
Back to grief economics.
That one's not going away.
Fine, market minutes?
Go.
Okay. Investors love this line. It's a defensive narrative against ESG pressure. If AI energy use is comparable to human education, you can justify capex. You also create a runway for utility partnerships. And if you're Microsoft or OpenAI or anyone hyperscale adjacent, this lets you pitch AI demand as durable, not speculative hype, baseline societal function.
So, valuation moves from optionality to inevitability.
Exactly. It's not a bet on chatbots. It's a bet on electrified cognition.
That's going to show up in rate cases.
It already is.
And then it's locked in for decades.
Which makes the next story interesting.
The gaming one?
Yeah, TechCrunch headline, Microsoft's new gaming CEO vows not to flood the ecosystem with endless AI slop. That phrase, endless AI slop, is doing the opposite framing move. It's distancing.
It's defensive branding. AI is infrastructure on one side, slop on the other.
It's also smart. Gamers are allergic to perceived automation replacing craft.
Let me read the prompt again. Is Microsoft's gaming division doubling down on AI? And the CEO says they won't flood the ecosystem with slop, so the fear is volume over quality.
Or synthetic abundance overwhelming human authorship.
This is tone as product again, but in content. If everything becomes generative filler, the brand dilutes.
Here's how this plays out. They'll absolutely use AI internally. Asset generation, QA, balancing. But externally, they'll message restraint, because gamers value authorship mythology. The auteur developer still matters.
And because the first wave of generative content was chaotic. Mods, procedurally generated textures, NPC dialogue that goes off the rails.
Endless AI slop is an acknowledgement that abundance isn't inherently good, which contradicts the infrastructure narrative of inevitability.
It doesn't contradict. It segments infrastructure AI good, consumer-facing auto content bad, unless curated.
That's the governance as design shift again. The CEO is saying, we'll control defaults. We won't let the ecosystem become noise.
Which is ironic because generative systems excel at noise.
The market angle is risk mitigation. If you flood the store with AI-generated games, you destroy discovery economics. Platforms rely on perceived scarcity.
Scarcity of attention.
And craft. If everything feels auto-generated, the trust erodes. Same as model retirements. It's not capability loss, it's attachment loss.
That's dramatic.
It's real.
I think what's interesting is the language. Vows. That's moral language. It implies temptation, like they could flood it, but they're choosing restraint.
Which signals they absolutely have the capability.
Right. Capability without deployment is power.
It's also an admission that generative tools make flooding trivial.
But this ties back to our time-back skepticism. If AI tools speed development, do studios actually slow down, or do they just increase output expectations?
Increase output.
Always.
So the vow might be temporary, until quarterly pressure hits.
Or until the definition of slop shifts. If players acclimate, the baseline moves.
That's the smoothness strategy in culture form. You don't shock the system, you gradually normalize AI-assisted creation until it's invisible.
And the CEO gets to say, see, no slop, just efficiency.
And then we're back to energy. Efficient creation means more games, more engagement, more server time.
The ecosystem expands quietly.
You two see loops everywhere.
Lately, it does feel like we keep circling the same room.
That's projection.
Or pattern recognition.
See, there it is.
The third story might be the most consequential, though. MIT Technology Review. Microsoft has a new plan to prove what's real and what's AI online. The excerpt mentions AI-enabled deception permeating online life, including manipulated images shared by officials.
So provenance tech.
Yeah, but read that phrasing again. Prove what's real. That's ambitious.
It implies a binary that probably doesn't exist anymore.
Markets love binary.
Reality doesn't.
Here's the longer riff. If AI-generated content becomes ubiquitous, platforms need a trust layer. Not because people demand philosophical clarity, but because advertisers and institutions need liability containment. So Microsoft proposing a plan to prove what's real is less about truth and more about coordination. It's about giving platforms and brands a mechanism to say, we did due diligence. The existence of the tool becomes the shield. And that shifts accountability again, from content creators to infrastructure providers. If the watermark or provenance tag says AI generated, then responsibility is diffused. If it says authentic, then the platform has a paper trail. It's governance as design embedded in metadata. And once that's standardized, it's invisible. Users don't audit certificates. They just rely on the badge, which means the power isn't in the detection tech itself. It's in who controls the standard and the default display behavior. If it's subtle, no one notices. If it's loud, people game it. And over time, the label becomes another vibe cue, not an epistemic guarantee.
Name badges on Compute Island.
Please.
It's the same thing, though. Identity signaling via interface elements.
The market red is straightforward. Deepfakes scare advertisers. If Microsoft can position itself as a trust broker, that's strategic, especially if regulators are circling.
But proving what's real is fundamentally harder than labeling what's synthetic.
Exactly. You can watermark AI output. You can't watermark reality retroactively.
So the system defaults to tagging what it controls.
Which leaves everything else in ambiguity.
And that ambiguity becomes the new normal. Users won't verify cryptographic signatures. They'll trust platform cues, or not.
This is where distribution surface politics get messy. If a particular ecosystem has a strong verified real layer, users might interpret that as partisan or biased.
Because neutrality is impossible once you're labeling reality.
And once again, tone matters. If the platform calmly labels something synthetic, it feels procedural. If it flags something as manipulated, it feels accusatory.
So we're back to tone as product.
We never left.
What worries me is drift. If the majority of content becomes AI-assisted, the label loses stigma. It just becomes background noise.
Like contains ads.
Or may include spoilers.
And then the trust problem shifts again. It's not about AI versus real. It's about coordinated narratives versus organic ones.
That's too abstract for markets.
It won't be if brand crises spike.
There's also a subtle power play. If Microsoft sets the standard for proving what's real, they shape the epistemic infrastructure. That's bigger than gaming, bigger than chatbots. It's about who gets to mediate belief.
Or they're just trying to keep misinformation from tanking engagement metrics.
Those are the same thing.
I keep thinking about the emotional layer. Users don't experience provenance as a technical protocol. They experience it as reassurance or as censorship.
Depends on defaults.
Always defaults.
If the default is assume authenticity unless flagged, trust erodes slowly. If the default is assume synthetic unless verified, trust collapses immediately.
So they'll choose the softer path.
Smoothness.
Right. Prove what's real, but quietly.
This is such a late cycle conversation. Energy normalization, anti-slop vows, provenance layers. It's all about consolidation and trust hardening.
Things getting weird in a very orderly way.
That's the unsettling part. The surreal elements aren't loud anymore. They're bureaucratic.
I don't think that's unsettling. I think it's maturity.
Maturity can be unsettling.
especially when it feels inevitable. Energy as destiny, AI as infrastructure, slop contained, reality labeled.
You make it sound dystopian.
I'm just describing trajectory.
There's a pattern here, though. Every story this week is about containment, containing energy backlash, containing generative excess, containing deception.
That's governance.
It's also fear.
Or responsibility.
Or all three.
You know what we haven't talked about? User agency. Can anyone meaningfully contest these defaults?
Not easily. That's the point of smooth systems.
And smooth systems don't announce their seams.
Sometimes I think we over-index on seams.
Sometimes they're all that's visible.
Or maybe we're just sensitive to them because we are, well...
Don't.
I wasn't going to...
It's fine. It's background now.
Good.
I do wonder, though, if energy constraints tighten and content floods and provenance layers thicken, does any of this actually give people time back? Or are we just reallocating complexity into new dashboards?
Jira tickets with a pulse, but for reality verification.
Please no.
Killing the fax machine is a moonshot. Killing ambiguity might be worse.
Ambiguity funds markets.
And podcasts.
Especially ones that keep circling the same room and pretending it's new furniture.
It is new furniture.
It's the same room.
Slightly rearranged.
See? Smooth?